And so where are we now? We are at the tail end of June 2022, the time I'm making these comments here. And it's my understanding that July 2022 will be the month where the Barnes& Noble store in the United States will have its regularly scheduled Criterion Collection sale. And so I will very likely make another video on this channel when it is official. But in the meantime, let me say that the Barnes & Noble store experience is one that I have great memories of, and I recall with a high degree of fondness. I'm in Tokyo right now, and as some of you may know, there aren't any Barnes & Noble stores here in Tokyo. And as far as I understand it, Barnes & Noble's online store does not permit international sales or international purchases with regard to its Barnes & Noble Criterion sale. At least I don't think it does. And so I haven't been able to participate directly in any of the Barnes & Noble sales, unfortunately. However, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy this time. On the contrary, I get great enjoyment out of it because it provides me with the opportunity to be able to hear from you, my dear friends, who are able to take part in the Barnes & Noble sale or any other sales that might happen in your particular regions of the world, and to hear about what titles you are aiming for, what titles that you are seeking, what is on your wish list, what titles you end up getting, etc. It's always a lot of fun for me to hear about that, and I live vicariously through your own experiences. So that is a great thrill for me, and also it also gives me the opportunity to recall, as I say, these memories that I have, and these memories I have with great fondness about, for example, my own personal Barnes & Noble shopping experiences. So for instance, several years back, or many years back I should say, there was a period in my life when I was living in New York City, and at the time I was living near Union Square in Manhattan, and the place was the location was from my vantage point quite excellent because it was near the Strand Bookstore, which I loved, and it was also near the Union Square Barnes & Noble. And if you've been to the Union Square Barnes & Noble, you know it's a multi-floored place with escalators, and at the time I was there, the music and video section would be at the back end of the ground floor, the first floor. And so that would be really good with the low shelves. You know, they would go about here, and so and there would be a whole row almost with Criterion titles. That would just be so much fun to just stand there and browse and just look at the titles. And they're not just Criterion, of course, but all these other great titles that were there, and CDs as well. So what a great experience that was. It was wonderful. You know, there would be by the way, in that area when I was living there, I remember that same bookstore, Union Square Bookstore, one day I was just in the first floor, maybe browsing, and then in that ground floor area, just in front of the entrance, they would have tables, and this would be the place where they'd have new releases, bestsellers, and there'd be tables with hot items, popular picks, staff picks, etc. And then the cashier registers would be on the left-hand side when you entered into the store, and then there would be escalators going up to the next floor. It would be sort of on the right-hand part of the room, as far as I remember. I remember one day I walked in and I was just browsing the sections, and I just looked across one of the tables there, and across the way from me, just several feet away from me, was none other than Bjork, the musician Bjork. She was there just browsing, and so it was I wish I had the courage to say something to Bjork, but I was, alas, I was bereft of any courage to do so. But yes, I saw Bjork in the Union Square Barnes and Noble. Incidentally, too, it wasn't in the Barnes and Noble, but in the vicinity there was this supermarket where I would do my shopping, grocery shopping. And one day I was at the supermarket register, and the one register over, I looked over and I saw a gentleman just doing his shopping and just going to the register at the supermarket. And I just looked, and he looked kind of familiar, and I realized that, oh, this was Ethan Cohen, of the Cohen brothers. Ethan Cohen. He was doing his grocery shopping at the supermarket, just the register next to mine. So that was interesting, doing the grocery shopping around the same time as Ethan Cohen. So very interesting indeed. And what was I saying? Oh yes, so the Barnes and Noble shopping experience, going back to that in New York, that was a really great time. And then of course, when I grew older and I got married and I had a family, and then by that time I was living in Tokyo, we would still, this was before the pandemic, we would take trips, family trips, to the United States. And there would be times we'd go, for instance, take family trips to New York City, as a stop at a hotel, a family trip hotel, and then stay at a hotel for maybe like a week or something like that. And I'd take time off work and go and visit, sightseeing and the like. And whenever we'd go to New York, I would be absolutely sure that there would be enough time in our schedule to stop by as many Barnes & Noble locations as possible in New York. So that would always be a lot of fun, just to stop and stare at the items, just walking through. There's just this feeling in the air, just walking through bookstores like these. And so really lovely time, really lovely time. And there was also times when my family would take family trips to Hawaii and to Honolulu. And so there's a Barnes and Noble at the Ala Moana shopping mall. I think that's the name of it. And the Hawaii visiting experience is quite exhilarating and overwhelming. The weather is really quite beautiful. And so there's a lot to do in terms of family activities and relaxation and swimming and enjoying the weather. But one of the things too that I always look forward to is going to that Barnes and Noble in Hawaii, because they also have the back. If I remember correctly, you go in, and the music and video section would be at the back end of that floor. It was a single floor. It was a wide, expansive floor. You'd go in the back, and there'd be the video section. You'd have the Criterion titles lined up. It was a really wonderful time. And also there would be that, like all Barnes and Nobles have, they have a little cafe. And so I remember having maybe about an hour or so to myself, and so I decided I'll spend it in the Barnes and Noble and just browse the shelves and go through the books and just have a good time and just get some titles that I wanted to get. And while I had a few minutes remaining before my family would stop by to meet me there. And so maybe I would go to that little cafe in Barnes and Noble and have like a chocolate chip cookie and an iced coffee or something like that. That would be So to go to the Barnes and Noble in Hawaii and get some Criterion titles and some other titles, and then to have that stack of things, and there are some other books. And while I'm waiting to meet my wife and my kids, I'd be sitting there in the cafe eating an oversized chocolate chip cookie and drinking an iced coffee. So that was the life. I felt I was set. That was so awesome. That was really quite something. Yeah. So I wish I could go back and have that physical store experience of going to a Barnes and Noble, and those huge doors, they still have those huge doors. It was like those double doors. You go in, you walk in through the one set of doors, and they'd have those oversized, I don't know, like pop-up books or something like that over there, and then you go through the second set of huge doors, and you go through, and then you're in the store proper. And it'd have all these one. And then I remember too, the summer reading, the school summer reading list books would be on one special shelf, and then there would be also the children's book section, which my family and I loved. It would be great because the selection is just overwhelmingly wonderful, and especially for my, obviously, right, for my kids, and trying to get as many books as possible. We can pack them into the suitcase on our way home. The suitcase would become quite heavy indeed, so it would be quite a test to flex my bicep muscles, and they would fail me every single time. But I would always try my very best, and so the trip returning home from Hawaii would be not just a test of my ability to stay awake due to tiredness from airline travel and jet lag, but also a test of my physical strength in terms of carrying the suitcases, which would be packed with books and Blu-rays and DVDs. So that would be, and plus other things as well, in terms of shopping, because that's one of the things that my family enjoy very much, is to have that shopping experience as well when we go abroad. Unfortunately, of course, because of the pandemic, that has prevented us from being able to travel abroad, and so we haven't been able to do so, unfortunately. But I hope that Barnes and Noble bookstore experience can occur once again very soon, because I for one have such fond memories of that time. It wasn't in a Barnes and Noble, it was in a different bookstore in New York, but I remember too, speaking of New York, I remember just going into another smaller bookstore in the city one day, and I saw Jim Jarmusch right there. I was really quite overwhelmed. Wow, he was quite tall, if I remember correctly, very, very tall. And then also near the, near a movie theater that we were, my wife and I were just sort of strolling through the streets, just walking, wandering about, to borrow a phrase from Hitchcock's Vertigo. We were just wandering about, and all of a sudden, emerging from one of the buildings was none other than Kiefer Sutherland. And so that was all. You just and there was a firefighter, I remember, on the street across the way, and he just waved hi to the firefighter. They were friends or something. So I was, wow. And my wife said, because she recognized him because from 24. And I said, oh yeah, it's Jack Bauer, right? 24. Yeah, wow. So that's really cool. And then also, oh gosh, what else? Oh yeah, this was also near where I lived when I was living in New York at the time. It was a very, I wasn't living there for very long, but when I was there, I was just, again, walking around near the vicinity. And I forget the name of the restaurant, but it was a restaurant that had fairly big windows, and you could kind of look from the street. I wasn't, stopping and staring, but just was walking casually, and I happened to look to my side, and I saw the restaurant, and there was this interior of the restaurant. It's a very lovely looking place. I'd never been inside. I've never been in there, so I don't know what the flavor of the food is like. But I saw, and I would say it was probably around say lunchtime or maybe brunch time, something like that. And I saw none other than the only Brian De Palma. And I saw Brian De Palma sitting in this restaurant, and he was, at the time I was looking at it, he was sitting by himself in this table in sort of the middle of the room. And so I said, wow, that's Brian De Palma. That's really, really awesome. And he was wearing that, the Brian De Palma jacket, that jacket. It looks like, I don't know what to describe. It's it looks like a fishing vest type of jacket. I'm not sure, but he was wearing that Brian De Palma vest jacket. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And it was like this huge glass window which was, and I suddenly thought, oh, this is just like and Brian De Palma in a restaurant with the vest jacket, eating in this huge restaurant with a huge window. This is just like Mission Impossible. And the whole scene with the restaurant and the glass. Oh, wow, wow, right? Red light, green light, yeah. Um, oh gosh, I wish I could have said that. I wish I could have. I wish I had a piece of gum on me. I didn't, but like juicy fruit or whatever, right, double mint gum or something, and just maybe I could have taken it out and just. I don't know. Yeah, that reminds me about Mission Impossible. Something I've always wanted to do. Actually, it was a bucket list thing. I've never practiced it, but to be able to take a stick of gum out of its foil with one hand. I've never been able to do that successfully, so I should try to practice that. So, why am I saying? Oh, yes, it's because of the story of seeing Brian De Palma eating in a restaurant in New York. So, yes, very good times indeed. Yes.